Hi, Merlin. How are you?
Good
Nice to
morning,
see
Shu-Yi.
you
Good
again.
to see you again. So, we've got this little history of chatting about some musical topics. Have you got a topic for us this morning?
Yeah. Again, talking to a bunch of teachers in the last couple weeks, a big topic keep coming up was about how do the teachers learn to see the students, especially for remedial students. How do the teachers to see in the students playing or who they are as a person and start from there? That seems to be a big challenge. A case that I have been working on is that the teacher, okay, in the lesson she'll see what the students need. Oh, he's very stiff. His bow hold is not right. And so the first 40 minutes of the 1 hour lesson was about fixing this, fixing that. And then at the end of the lesson, you could tell that both of them were exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of it, it's the teacher is trying her best to share her experience and his and her wisdom to help the student get to be the model student. And the student was really trying hard to understand what this teacher is trying to say.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere was heavy. Yeah, at the end, both sides try so hard. But I wonder if there's other ways that we could, get things done. I'm not sure if it's easier or lighter ways.
Yeah, I think you're right. The easier or lighter way, what would that look like? And what comes to mind for me right away um, are a couple statements. They're my go-to statements all the time. I use this statement. I'm curious to see, or I'm interested in knowing more about what you know. For example, about playing, about bow hold, or what you know about playing fast on the piano. Um, and so I love that expression. I'm curious to know. And the other expression that I use a lot is, "Can you tell me more?" Or
Mm-hmm.
can you tell me about blah blah blah? Can you tell me about what are how do you know if you're holding the bow in a good way?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's always interesting because students do have their own perceptions of what is the good way to do it. Sometimes those perceptions might be um, only partially formed. So they got part of the information, but they didn't get all of the information. So they've got part of the information and they're going with that. And and then my other uh, expression that I use a lot is, I can see why you would think that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the idea that, oh, you've been studying with the cello or the piano with another person, or you've been studying on your own for 5 years. I can see why you would come up with that solution. So for me, that's my way of acknowledging that I can see that they have their own care for whatever is going on, however well guided or misguided that care might be. They're going with the care that they've got available to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very nice tips about several things. One is communicate with the student and curious. That the teachers should be curious about what the students are thinking at the moment or what the students know. Like you said, in the boho, how do they feel? And I use that word, that this sentence a lot with the teachers I'm coaching, such as make sure you don't describe something look like, but describe something feels like. If your thumb should feel a little more tender or stiffer, or and it's not just about pinky on top of the bow. This goes there, and they'll make sure that they can describe the technique in movement rather than just this should look like this. I feel the if we go back to before the communication, it seems like the first step is that teachers need to remember that the lesson doesn't just start as do this now.
Right.
I think a lot of lessons seems to be fallen to that kind type of situation. I think, and it's because the teachers, sorry, not parents, teachers want to be responsible, and maybe most teachers they feel they they will show that they're responsible by asking students to do things right away, and missing the window of communication. Like in our earlier chat today is talking about greeting or inquire how the students are doing. That sounds like a typical routine, or the I don't know, or the Suzuki taking a bow. I'm ready for the lesson. That greeting part seems to be the first window of inviting communication, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. And the greeting, oh, the greeting is always interesting because you can get lots of information in a greeting. You can find out, how the week went. I always remember my student Nathan was this young guy. He's a computer programmer now. And he was about 6 years old. He came for a lesson, walked in the room, said, "Oh, Dr. Thompson, you're going to be so proud of me. I did everything you told me to do. This amazing kid." And so then I said, "So that's fantastic, Nathan. What did you improve?" And he was just stunned. And his head just crinkled like this. You could see the folds in his forehead. And he said, "Dr. Thompson, you didn't say anything about improving. All you said I had to do was practice." And okay, it's obvious we have some work to do here now. But for me, what was the highlight was that here was a student who, I thought I had a good relationship with. I thought we were sharing lots of things. Granted, he was 6 years old. And what I realized was that lots of our communication just kind of went by the side. We didn't really get to what it was that we were talking about. So that for me became then a really important connection with the word improve. So rather than just saying, "Did you practice this week?" It became, yeah. So I could ask Nathan, "So can you tell me about the things that you improved?" And if he said nothing, I didn't improve anything. Nothing got better. I tried all the things you suggested, but nothing got better. Well, then for me, that's valuable information. Or he could say, "Oh, yeah, I've improved, blah, blah, blah. I've improved, blah, blah, blah." And then that would give me the clue. "Oh, well, why don't you show me all the things that you've accomplished over the last few days, and we'll go from there." As
Perhaps,
opposed to,
right.
like you're saying, jumping in and giving people things to do right away. Yeah, let me hear what you've got to say first.
Yeah, that can be a first tip if teachers are scratching their head, not knowing how to make their lesson more inclusive, or if they don't know how to communicate with the students. That can be the first question they can remember to ask is, what do you think improved? That word can, because it's not just how much did you practice or what did
Yeah,
you practice, but what have you done that you feel it's getting better. And I found that's a really good way to encourage students to look back. Well, what have I done? It's more of a quality of something, or skill based of practice. I I kind of want to talk about the same question if this is not the 6-year-old Nathan, but a preteen or teenage remedial student who comes in with already have some kind of a slightly complicated mindset of, my previous teacher taught me this, now I have a new teacher, for sure she will tell me different thing. So my question is, what do you do with either with a remedial but teenage student?
Yeah, it's a really good question because um, we can really turn them off really
Yes.
quickly. It's like they just go, oh, it's just going to be another bunch of do this, do this, do this, do this. I already had that do this, do this, do this situation. Is there no one who knows how to teach something besides do this, do this, do this? And what I would like to, the concept that I use that's in the back of my mind is what I call multiple ownership. And
Mhm.
it's this idea that we can do things many different ways. We can use our imagination, we can use concrete knowledge, we can use our emotions on certain occasions. We can use this bow hold, we can use that bow hold, we can use all these different things. And for me, what it kind of stems from was an experience I had many years ago. I was asked to be part of a recording, and so I was the accompanist because I'm a pianist. Was a great flutist there, and so we got to the recording studio. We play a piece through. The technician would come out, who was the master teacher of the flutist, and he would say, "Oh yeah, Merlin, great, nice job." And then he turned to the flutist and he go, "But you need," and it would seem like he would transform the whole piece. And I'm thinking, that's amazing. We recorded again, and all the things that this master teacher had mentioned showed up in this reversion, this retaping. Went on for about maybe 3 or 4 hours this way. And then once the master teacher came out and said to me, "Oh, Merlin, I need you to do this da, 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 in the piece." And I went, "Oh no, I didn't practice it like that." So he said a couple of things to the flutist. We played it again. I didn't really capture it. And I realized at that moment that there was a serious flaw in my preparation for this recording. And that was that for this one piece, I only had one way of approaching it.
Mm.
And I said to myself in that moment, I'm not going to be that kind of a teacher. That my students only know one way to
Mm.
solve this problem.
Mm.
And so I've used this concept, I call it multiple ownership. So what I like about playing, about musical studies, is that you can improve things by playing with your eyes closed, by playing faster, by playing slower, by using your breath, by paying attention to your core. Any one of those things will initiate some kind of change in the piece.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about connecting students with those things, all with the idea that um, I'm going to help them strengthen their multiple ownership of the skills that they need to be fluent as a musician. Fluent, no, maybe not even as a musician, just fluent in terms of doing what they want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Doing what they want to do. It could be sports, it could be writing a short paragraph, it could be learning Spanish, it could be playing the piano, but it has to be, like you said, it shouldn't be only one way of doing something as the correct way. And I think that's the danger. I would say a lot of teachers can step into is that, oh, present this and that this is the way to play something, and then yeah. So I think that goes back to how teachers can challenge themselves, challenge ourselves, not to immediately impose upon what we think is the correct way of playing on the student. Because if the first step in a lesson is that, then we're already not giving the student the space to fill in. We are controlling the whole space. In other cases, like I like to say, playing ping pong
Mhm.
rather than I throw this ball and the student throw the ball exactly the same way, because then that becomes no communication. That's just copying. But if a lesson is a ping pong game, then how I send my ball needs to be at that level. Otherwise, he will miss all the balls and it won't work. Then I guess my question will be, how do you coach teachers to have that, to gain that flexibility?
Yeah, because what happens with teachers is that there's fear that if we don't just focus on the right way of doing things, that we won't get to our destination. And so we also realize we have a responsibility to help students to get to the destination with as few mishaps as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so all of that is well intentioned, but at the same time, it doesn't really reflect meaningful learning processes, because meaningful learning processes have ebb and flow, ups and downs. They have mistakes. And I'm starting this new expression. Mistakes are not the problem. Mistakes are part of the solution is what they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a matter of getting rid of things. It's a matter of awareness is what it really is.
Right, right.
And helping students to become more aware of what they're doing and where that awareness is taking them is a great thing.
Right. I think you pinpoint something really clear, is that it's not about getting rid of things. I think a lot of teachers feel like they need to help the students get rid of the wrong playing, get rid of the wrong notes, then and only play the right notes. While also about learning should be full of ebbs and flow, and so that means if we think about making mistakes, uh, is a great way to get better. If we change our mindset this way, then I think the first step of teaching a remedial student or teaching older beginners will will be a lot more open and relaxed. I feel right away if the concept is, oh, here's a wrong note, you can describe how the wrong note sound like, and you can gain knowledge from while doing it. How can we because the student is doing it, the student just did a note maybe with the wrong hand shape on the keyboard, or but by describing it, we're including their mind
Mm-hmm.
in this communication, rather than putting them into the passive role of being like, not putting them, yeah, not in the role of being corrected.
Right.
I think that's a major difference in a more inclusive teaching or divisive good teaching.
Yeah.
um,
Yep. So interesting to talk about this because you see, if a student comes with, say, two things that they consider they do very well, and one of them might be they can hold the bow with a fist so tight you couldn't possibly get those fingers loose. So that's the success they have with their bow hold. So if that's the only way they know how to hold their bow, they have nothing to compare it to.
mhm,
So they're not coming from the teacher's perspective. So the teacher's perspective is saying, yeah, I've tried stiff bow hold, I've tried flexible bow hold, I've tried moving bow holds, I've tried not moving bow holds, I've tried all these different bow holds, and I know where to use them and where not to use them.
mhm,
Student doesn't come in with that.
mhm,
Student comes in with only their limited amount of experience, which for them is their success.
mhm.
So,
Right.
regardless of how, like I say, ill-informed or misadvised they are, they've created what they call their own success.
Mhm.
And of course, they're going to use their success to solve any problem that they encounter. So, our job then is to help them be successful in
Mhm.
more than one way.
Right.
So then they can start to compare. Oh, yeah. When I hold the stiff bow hold, that does really work well. If I want to make scratching bow sounds, that works great. But if I want to have a different kind of bow of sound, that stiff bow hold doesn't work at all.
Right. So you're actually uh putting yourself in their shoes first, right? So you try their way, you try their stiff boho way, and then say, oh yeah, this one sounds good. Um, if you loosen it up, it will sound better. So it's starting from what they know, and then guide them to try something that's slightly different, but not completely out of their comfort zone,
Right.
and then maybe incrementally leading them to getting looser and looser, and to the a more flexible bow hold. Yeah, so I think one thing is how do teachers train themselves to put themselves in the student's shoe, and how to practice to see what's already there that's positive, and that way, from that positive information, from those facts, the teachers can then tailor the next step, tailor the next way of communication, more inclusive. I think that seemed that seemed to be a good step for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have two alternatives. We can lead the way. We can recognize what students are doing, and we can lead the way. And that may be easy enough to do, but we can also ask the student to lead the way.
Yeah.
And I always remember, just asking a student who, at a certain point could do lots of different things, could challenge himself, like I was saying, eyes closed, faster, slower, all this kind of stuff. And finally I said, so what other challenge can you come up with? And so he was maybe 6 or 7. So he stood up, pushed the chair back from the piano, stood up, crossed his leg,
Mhm.
and then continued to play the piece with one leg crossed while standing up. And, by all accounts, it was a huge accomplishment because he had to really concentrate. Where was his core? Where all these things? Is he going to fall over while he's playing the piece?
Mm.
And what happened was, of course, the piece got better, or I shouldn't say better. The piece transformed. His fluency and his concentration became more intense. So whenever fluency and concentration become more intense, you can go to another level of playing. I won't say whether it was better or worse. For me, that's not the point. The point is that the concentration and the fluency were more intense, which tells me that he was engaging those things then in playing the piano.
Right.
3 years later, when I said, I became again to a place where I wanted him to challenge, he said, well, I think I'll try standing up. I said, sorry, that's book 1 and book 2 challenge only. You can't use that challenge in book 4. It's not deep enough.
Uh-huh.
Can you come up with a more sophisticated challenge?
Which is?
Well, I don't remember what he came up with at that point, but it was just enough to go, okay. And as I'm thinking back on it, concentration and fluency were his 2 big achievements. How do you become more sophisticated about concentration and fluency? Well, your imagination is the best source.
No, right. I really like what you just described. Is this student definitely has that piece, uh, in his way, mastered the piece with his own imagined creative way of playing. And I think I really would like our chats to help teachers to have, free of their ideas, free of their preconception about how a lesson should go about. I think again, I'm still pondering about how to help the older beginners or remedial students to feel free, feel carefree, to share their part of their their say, to have a say. Um, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think like you said, make sure the teachers put their mind in the student's shoe. Um, Maybe the student just had too much sports events this week, or have too much homework, or maybe like in America we have standardized tests. Maybe there's some test um, was exhausting. I think these are all. I think this still be solved at the beginning of a lesson, going back to say, have a greeting time, encourage students to let you know how they're doing. I think that's even more important for the remedial, for the older students. Um, and yeah, and then go with follow the strategies you mentioned earlier. Um, Curious about how they're doing, giving them multiple ownership to close their eyes and do something, or look away and do something, or invite them to create a way to play the same song. I think these are all great strategies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Very good. I think
So
that's a good one.
I think so too. I think so too.